work for you, or you need longer time?
I think it would take me about an hour to run there.
Okay, so we probably still meet you at 2?
Yes.
Okay, we see you at 2. Okay, you can interview them.
Yeah. This is the microphone you got me for my birthday. There's 2 of them, but I just keep one. And this protects it from wind. It's so that it doesn't have like wind noise. But you can take this little puffing thing off. Yeah.
All right. Nice.
Yeah. And it records. It records right now, and it records. It can record for 15 hours. With just this. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you tired?
And then it has a little.
I can speak Mandarin. 你好, 你好.
Yeah.
Do you want me to carry this back for you?
No, I can carry that.
All right. Then I see you.
Yeah, I'll see you at the Hotpot place. Okay. At first, only a couple weeks ago, I found it quite intimidating to just even have sitting at my computer with a microphone on. It was very intimidating to speak directly to a microphone with nothing else going on. And then it was fairly difficult as well, playing a video game and talking at the same time. That was a bit intimidating to sort of feel like you have to keep the flow going as you play. You think of new thoughts while you're saying your thoughts out loud. That was challenging originally, and maybe it's still equally challenging to do that as a skill, but it's not as intimidating anymore. Now that I've done it a couple times, you're having a screen recorder running while talking, playing a video game, not live, but recorded and then published later. And now that I've been outside and I say my thoughts out loud while I'm outside, I'm more comfortable doing that as well. But Pleasanton is a nice place to do that. There's not a lot of people around on the pathway, at least that I go on. I have to look up directions again. There's a internal to the neighborhood park here that spans a couple of blocks, and I'm just trying to get onto a trail so that I can properly just kind of connect through that park, which is also, it gives you a nice walk for part of the way. There is kind of, I just crossed a big intersection, and once I finish with this park, there's quite an exposed section where you exit the neighborhood onto kind of a highway, and then you're on a small sidewalk on the side of a bridge with a highway under it and a highway on it. Then you kind of get into this like no shade area where you're just running in this newly developed region over to this Hotpot place that sometimes has a line, and there's a lot of sun and pavement in that area. And that's mostly why often when I'm invited to Hotpot here, I don't want to join, and sometimes I don't, because it's not a very pleasant place to get to, even though Pleasanton in spots has done a pretty decent job with pathways. But then like anywhere, it's almost like they didn't really understand what they were building. They have these gaps in the pathways that are just kind of annoying to deal with, even though there's great pathways on both sides of these intersections or these industrial areas. They kind of leave you hanging. You're following the pathway thinking like they have a good plan, and then they just kind of drop the ball at unexpected times, and you kind of just have to face these unpleasant walking environments with no better alternative. Just for 1 second there, as I'm running across this park pathway that goes behind some suburb houses, and then it's adjacent to like a large field behind a school, I caught like a whiff of a smell that reminded me maybe for a moment of almost like my hometown of Ottawa, something I would have smelt in an environment like this. Maybe like a little bit of like laundry detergent or water, fertilizer, something like that. And it just kind of sparked like a memory in an interesting way. There was a certain smell that I associated with a couple of months I spent in Toronto in an Airbnb. This was a couple of years ago. We got back from China. It was prior to me starting at Microsoft full time. We had a couple months vacation in Toronto. And there was like I can try to describe it like a lakeside urban smell that was almost like laundry being done, like when laundry finishes and you kind of have the smells, a little bit of the detergent or the heat and the soap in the clothes, and in a small apartment with like fall-ish overcast weather in like the end of the summer. And I never really fixated on exactly what that smell is, but when I think of that time, I almost can invoke that smell. And I've heard that smell is a very powerful sense that's bound with memory. We have certain smells that we associate with very strongly with certain memories, and if we smell that same smell, it's a very powerful memory device. And with, they have some advanced, like people are into perfumes these days, and we have machines that can generate different smells and incense devices. You would think that some company would, I don't know, trademark some kind of smell, sell you a little egg-shaped incense dispenser along with, say, their video game. Maybe it's Bluetooth connected. When you're playing the video game, it gives off the smell. And then you'd have this very powerful memory device that, the audience that played the game and got into it, you could sort of trigger their memories using this smell. And it's interesting that no one's really gone after that in a big way yet, because it seems kind of cool. It seems powerful in a cool way to do some novel storytelling. This is the point where I wish I had some kind of AR glasses, because I'm looking at the map. I just need like a little glance at the map to make sure I'm on the right route, but I have to stop and take out my phone. But if I just had even a very simple waypoint or like a little compass indicator in my glasses or something, or even just a list of names, of street names or triggers, or even low-res photos of waypoints, that would be pretty helpful to have in a heads-up display in glasses. It could be very simple, just text, or like a single number counting down, indicating some kind of distance to the next turn. Even if you had to sort of manually set up the route to work in advance. But I mean, I could, click a couple times, click key points in my phone, and then sort of send that off to the glasses, and then just get either a waypoint or a countdown to the next turn. And that could be, they could stream that from the phone for more information. But we don't really have the platform yet, I guess. If everyone had a pair of glasses, like say sunglasses or seeing glasses, a lot of people wear prescription glasses. If you just had like a nice pair of cheap designer glasses that had this functionality, even just the ability to show a single number built in, and everyone was wearing them, then you'd have people interested in building out that functionality, knowing that there's a large customer base. But there just isn't any sort of AR technology that everyone wears yet. So there's no incentive to build things for something like that. But I still feel that that's going to take us by surprise. Someone is going to release the right form factor with the right battery life, the right weight, and all of a sudden that's going to be a paradigm shift in terms of the way we can access information at different times, and what effect that's going to have on how we sort of think, or the activities we can do, and what we need to bring on those activities. And I mean like a good, simple AR headset that's reliable. That's what's going to make that shift. And I think we would not see it coming, because everyone sort of, I dismiss VR to AR like it hasn't had success. There's no games. But, even something like let's say I'm wearing a pair of glasses that has a a decent microphone than if let's say I'm engaged in conversation with a friend and I just want to tap the corner of my glasses, record a quick audio message and send that off to them. They can receive that in their glasses via their phone, paired Bluetooth. Say they're carrying their phone in their pocket. They can get prompted that I left them a message. They can hit a button, listen to my message over an earpiece that's in their glasses, like bone conduction glasses. And then they can send a message back, and it's asynchronous. But say we're both at a concert or a theme park, or we're just coordinating something. One of us stop at a gas station, one of us goes inside. You can just tap your glasses and send off a little voice message to your friend without taking your phone out of the pocket. And it's just this close by proximity, but it would work far as well because it would go through the phones. But it would be designed for when you're close, you're trying to physically coordinate something when you're close by, but you don't want to fumble with your phone while you're carrying other stuff or at a party or something. And we just assume that let's not do voice to text, just send the audio and have no transcription, just a quick audio file to hands-free coordinate something, send off a short coordinating message. That seems like where a new era will start. Everyone would want those kind of glasses, especially if you're part of a friend group and you want to sort of receive the communications from the group, what's going on. You'll miss out if you don't have this affordable pair of glasses. And once everyone has those, they'll start beefing it up and they'll have new features, and that will be the same trajectory, I would think, as the iPhone 1. Let's hope it costs less overall, though. The glasses maybe is a bit simpler, a bit cheaper style of hardware, so maybe they don't have to charge as much as a phone, and it does promote no screen time. It promotes putting your phone away in your bag or your pocket, wearing the glasses, the sunglasses that you need to wear anyways to be outside. They could be prescription sunglasses. You're wearing something you already need to wear, and the idea is get rid of your phone and just be present with your friends in a park or whatever. And if one of you is out of earshot, you can stay connected.
Wait.
And I mean, if we put effort into it at the moment, I think we could already have that kind of technology. And maybe, what I would say, that's what we're missing out on with all this AI hype and all this investment in AI and the failure of VR to materialize capital gains so far. It has people not watching that space. I just found that I was running down the off-ramp onto a highway adjacent to the road I wanted to be on. But of course there's a big hole in the fence that people have made because obviously they want to walk here, even though the urban planners couldn't imagine someone wanting to do that. I'm glad there's a hole in that fence, or I would have to go way around. I'm early though anyways. But this is an interesting point. And it's one of those moments where I'm glad I have this on audio. Let's check to make sure it's recording. Because I got, about, let's say 30 minutes to wait right now before it's 2 p.m., before I'm meeting people. I'm on a back road. It's not that noisy. And I have this idea that I want to get across, which is kind of like a prediction that is, let's cut it out with AI. AI is not working. We want to talk to people. We don't want to talk to bots. Even if AI was good and fun to talk to and was just like a person, it still wouldn't be a person and it wouldn't be one of our friends. And we wouldn't want to sacrifice a real friendship with all the positives and negatives and the challenges for a pristine bot of whatever quality, whatever pay point. We want to talk to other human beings because we are human beings. That's something that I would say should not be up for debate. And so based on that, there's nothing to be gained going down this AI chatbot path. But what we need to do, which to its credit, Meta in some sense is doing, is making those Ray-Bans. They have a camera in them, which I think is not necessary. It's a lower quality camera. and it's not in a good angle when you film from the glasses, so that can be thrown out. But having a microphone in the glasses, having a little bit of text display if possible for the time or for a countdown timer or a waypoint, like I say, that's interesting. But if you have what I'm saying, this ability to hands-free quickly send a voice message to a friend that you have pre-configured because you're going out with a friend and you both have these glasses that say cost $80. $80 for these glasses, maybe more for the lenses, maybe more for tinted lenses, maybe more for prescription lenses, but it's not going to exceed the cost of a pair of actual glasses. A pair of actual prescription glasses are $300, $400 when I go to the store, when I try to get glasses so I can see. And my company's insurance pays a little bit, even though being able to see is part of my job. I don't get 100% free glasses. I have to pay at least $100 when I go to the store. And there's online stores now that are like avoiding the glasses monopolies, I think, that can give you a pair of glasses for like $30. But what I'm saying is, like, both you and your friend pay $80, the price of a video game these days, because video games just became $80. You pay that amount to get these glasses, and then when you go out with your friend and you're physically separated out of earshot, you can very easily hands-free send audio messages to one another. That to me that's a game changer moment where if you want to get outside and you want to be connected with your friends and you want to be connected even more and feel even more capable of being connected with them and joined with them, and without pulling out your phones, you can coordinate, let's say, a day of activities. You can head to another bar if that's what you're doing. You can browse in a mall. But even if you're in separate stores in the mall, you can send voice messages to one another asynchronously, maybe even synchronously if we wanted to allow that. But I think asynchronous is good because it's just a little bit of a shooting messages back and forth while you're carrying shopping bags or you're eating something. And then you're sending those messages for the purpose of meeting up. And maybe the glasses even have a waypoint showing you where your friend is, so you can physically meet up with them very easily, very conveniently, without getting on the phone and seeing all the other prompt messages you have. So these glasses are designed to enable people to get together in person and augment and further emphasize being together in person and finding each other, re-finding each other if you get separated in a physical space. That's the intent of the glasses. And I think that's excellently positioned for the wants, for the authenticity that the next generations want, and the being physically together in person that next generations want. Maybe they even get rid of their smartphone and they have some kind of lower power, like the Fairphone is one I recently heard of. It's cheaper, it has a longer battery life, it does less than a smartphone. But if the whole point is just coordinate quickly and get together with your friends and use it as a base station for the glasses, then that's sort of, I think what I've done there is paint a picture of a new emerging social reality where we go back to in person and we use these little bits of technology to smooth that out as we might desire. But once you have that platform, then you have every developer in the world knowing that if you build an app for these glasses and you iterate on the model, you make them more battery efficient or more capable, then everyone is going to buy them. And that is a shift where we move towards a future where a lot of money isn't being invested in AR glasses. And there's like a golden era, just like there is with any new technology, where the technology kind of takes a back seat and we correctly understand that the real value is meeting up with people in person and talking to people directly with no distraction. And then we have these fun little technology things to share. But as these glasses get more powerful, then of course they sort of take over, they become dominant. And we go back to maybe everyone's an avatar and everything's digital all the time and we barely ever see anyone in person. And we're always playing video games in these glasses against bots who are not real people. And that's sort of, after the golden glasses era, you have the fallout where people sort of lose their way and capital takes over. But even though, that's not after this golden era of glasses with the simple glasses as I've painted, there's like a more negative era where people think they're having fun, but they're not really, and it kind of gets bad. But that's still a paradigm shift. That's still a place where we're not coming back to phones after that. And that would be my prediction of something. We could get that treadmill started today, and I would recommend it. I think we're in need of a new innovation and something to just keep innovation going, just keep things fresh. And in my opinion, it's definitely, the intent is for a little while, get back to the era where we meet up in person and we have fun in person, using these glasses as like a spark to get us sort of on that train. But yeah, at the moment, everyone's obsessed with AI, thinking there's something there. But I don't, even as much as that ever pans out, it doesn't get us back to the true core thing of being a human and connecting with other people. Because AI, even if it accurately pretends to be, is never a person. And so you're missing out on something, even if it's just this unperceivable thing where there's no difference. It still feels, the thing that if you imagine a very capable AI that is like a person and it has a body, a robotic body or something, the one thing is that's not really being a human anymore. You've entered a new like interspecies thing almost, where it's like humans and robots kind of are together, and the robots are identical to what we believe humans are. But over time, you never know. Maybe those robots evolve just as humans do, and they don't evolve in exactly the way humans would have. Then we've sort of lost the narrative. We're no longer like a human species investigating our own growth. We're now like kind of getting into the cyborg realm. And that's a different story that, is going to have different desires and different plot points, I guess. But I sort of feel like entering that realm is a little bit wandering away from where we started, which was humans. And I think there's a lot of growth and simplifying and things that humans could learn about themselves that we kind of already know, that we just sort of forgot, or we don't pay attention to, or we don't value. And it would probably be worth really investing in that and paying more attention to that than starting this new chapter of humans and cyborgs and thinking that that's better somehow or more interesting. But anyways, I'm at the Hotpot place now, and I have 20 minutes to wait. So I'm gonna send them a message and maybe pause. I guess I'll leave the recording running, and then when they get here, I'll check that it's still recording. I plan to record some of the Hotpot itself, maybe just pass around the mic or leave it in a place on the table where it's not gonna get wet. I don't want it to get dropped in the Hotpot. And yeah, this is also a little bit of an experiment today, seeing in a group setting like this with a live mic, how do people act? Do they get comfortable with it? How much does it pick up the 5-person conversation? I guess 6-person conversation. And do people pass it around? Does it get damaged? Does it accidentally get turned off? Are there moments that we're glad we captured? Do we end up feeling like it's better for 1 person or 2 people, and 5 is too much? Maybe the audio is too low quality. But that is what I hope to learn today. So maybe it's not crowded here at the Hotpot place. I think I'll get a table for 6 of us, I think, if everyone's joining. That was 5 kilometers to get here. Just waiting for confirmation that I should get a table. Yeah, I was fairly happy with the audio that I recorded just now, because there's these moments where usually I would be having this discussion inside my own head, and I would be wondering how good I would be at communicating my thoughts in an actual spoken way, not just thinking them. I think in terms of like a monologue. I envision that I'm giving myself a speech in my own head when I'm running, at moments like that where I have this idea for a paradigm shift in technology. And I sort of assume that I wouldn't be very good at like real time giving a speech. But sometimes if I'm running with someone else, we have a conversation, we get comfortable, and then I sort of communicate something like that. But that seems to be something that I was able to invoke here, where I could just kind of speak my mind as if there was someone else there that I was talking to in sort of a fairly, I think, coherent way. And hopefully some of the passion and stuff in my voice comes across, and that translates some meaning as well, where, I'm not blinded by this or excited by this or feeling that it's necessary or inevitable. It's just sort of something that I see emerging, and mostly I just like to sort of feel like I have a bit of a sense for what's going to happen or what potentially we could be missing out on. It'll be a group of five, and they're coming in like 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, we have a table.
Do you have a table now, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a table for 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should get a haircut. Maybe in our 2 weeks.
What style?
Hello, Ruby.
You only have one style of haircut.
I was still thinking that I'll run to Mr. Sun.
Look how obese it is.
Whoa. From that angle, it's pretty.
You sure? That's the plan.
It's like cow colors. That's the plan, you mean?
I thought that was the plan.
So maybe I would leave early. I would be there. It would take me like 40 minutes, 30
But you
minutes.
don't have to, because I'm gonna pack my stuff and then whatever Bill wants to carry back.
Yeah, just for something to do. So, well, am I going to meet you at Mr. Sun or meet you at Nancy? Yeah, I just crossed over the fairly crowded bridge. It's pretty noisy. That kind of gets you over the highway to the Hotpot place. And now I'm just on the other side of that bridge. I'm about to enter the neighborhoods, which have quieter streets, and then there's a park in the center of the neighborhood that I can follow a path for a little bit on. And so the walking or the run improves in quality soon. Something interesting that I thought of as I was leaving the Hotpot place with my microphone still active. The microphone's been active since I got off the BART and I met them to give them the keys. It's just been nonstop active, and I'm planning on cutting out any silences in the editing process so it'll seem like a seamless conversation. But as I was leaving, I realized, there's continuity between these social events. And what I mean is, like, for me, obviously, I'm meeting them at the BART. I'm doing my own personal monologue as I run. I'm having Hotpot with them. Then I go off on my own again. I do my monologue. As I get back to the house, then there'll be 3 people walking to get Boba. And these are sort of distinct social situations that I'm moving between, all continuously from my perspective, and fairly continuously from the perspective of the content as well. And since I'm the one that's wearing the microphone, it's sort of my perspective, and that's kind of the story that's being told, is the story from my perspective and my experience. And it's kind of neat that if you're watching this, you don't hear the things that I don't hear, which is kind of cool. If I leave the Hotpot, then we don't have information about how that conversation continues. But I guess we could, because I could have left the microphone with them, and then you'd have a story, not from my perspective being the sole carrier of the microphone, but from the perspective of the microphone. You'd have a story get told. And that starts to get kind of interesting in a creative sense. You could sort of fix the microphone so that it's always on and just kind of pass it around. And if you're on a trip, whoever has the microphone and whoever's talking into it, that's the story at that moment. And after the trip, say, no one would really know what the story was. Only the microphone would have the story. And that's exciting, because if you're on a trip, you obviously, you sort of passively yourself, your own brain and senses records the trip from your perspective. And, if you take a photo, if you make a video, that's you making that stuff. But rarely would you have the opportunity to hear a conversation that took place on the trip between other people or someone else's monologue that you weren't present for. And you might see their photos, but if they happen to bring the microphone with them, you'd have this alternate recording from the trip that you were on that took place, without you hearing it. And then after the trip, you could then take that recording and listen to it, and you'd actually kind of learn more about the trip that you were on and how other people felt about it. The things they felt about it, or the things they were thinking of during that time period that they didn't tell you directly on the trip. It's funny, I took a wrong turn there. I started exiting the park back to like the suburb streets. But it makes me realize, like, if you have like a single family house in this area, you just get this big park right in the middle of your house and everyone else's that you have like direct access to. And it's like this feature that is built here that is for the public, but it's like right beside your home, and your home is like makes up one of the walls to it. I always found that strange, that we can sort of say that we're doing something for the public, but hide it away behind where it's essentially not really going to be used by anyone except for the people that privately own sections of land in this area. And so it's like kind of a way of like building something for them, the people that claim to own private ownership of the land, but using taxpayer like county dollars. And it's kind of too bad how, some people get like a way better deal, and the deal they get is amplified and made better by some of the money that is taken from people that don't get such a good deal in the area. You'd kind of want some assurance that things would be balanced, where everybody can enjoy the park and also live comfortably in the area. But we kind of built things in a certain way, and it's hard to unbuild things. But yeah, I guess, it should be on the recording because I said it in the restaurant. But I had this idea, which I've had for a while, that if I took a GoPro and microphones on a Disney trip, for example, I just say Disney World because Disney World's a fairly relaxing place, especially like late at night in the parks, going from the Star Wars area, going on the last couple rides. It would be nice to capture that vibe of just a family hanging around, getting an ice cream or something, going on a ride where you could bring a GoPro on the ride, talking, eating a meal, having dinner or something, capturing that moment. It would be very interesting to get some high quality video and audio of that. It'd be a nice thing, I think, a nice memory for a family. But then as well, let's say you leave the park and someone else stays, and you leave the camera with them, and you leave their mic live, and they know it, obviously, they know they're being recorded and they're doing some of the filming. You can leave the park on a vacation, and you just have to rely. It's always fun to get their secondhand impression of what they did later. If you ask them how their night went, maybe the next day they can tell you about it. And that would be cool to capture that on camera too. Say you meet up with them the next day, you ask them what they did that night, and you get a recording of that. But then you also have the recording of what they did in real time, filmed by them. And you could sort of match that up with their indication of how their night went and how they felt with the actual footage they got. And you'd have this. It would just be very interesting to be presented with that kind of film and audio, and edit that together into into something that captures the experience and the shared experience and the alone experience. And I feel, if you capture enough stuff and you look at it from the right angle, I think it becomes something more than just a memory that's interesting to the people who lived it. It becomes like some kind of greater commentary on what we want or what we think we want or what we highlight, what we think is important versus what other people find important or interesting, if given the opportunity to sort of examine. That's certainly what I've been realizing when for an outlet like MinMax, for example. MinMax is a games outlet based in Minnesota, but they go on trips. And when they go on trips, they shoot a travel log, and a lot of their footage is like handheld iPhone or small camera footage with using sometimes these exact mics they use to record audio on a travel log. And you sort of get the footage of you get the good footage from the events they go to if they're doing say a panel or I'm trying to think of a good example of, when they're sort of, when they're doing like a real production heavy event. You can sort of watch them on, this is a good example, the giant bomb couch. So this is actually a really good example. The giant bomb couch at Summer Game Fest. That was they have someone, Jan Ochoa, I guess, doing audio and video on the couch. And they're interviewing. That's when people are on camera, they get mic'd up, they sit on the couch. There's good lighting, good audio, good video of them on couch. And that's sort of like they're performing for those hours. They're answering questions from Jeff Grubb, a talented interviewer and personality himself. So you have this high production content that, maybe it gets clipped. So maybe you have the best of those segments get clipped because they go well. And then you have the full couch video. And then something that Giant Bomb did was they put a camera in the backyard so you could see people just chilling out there. So you have this there's the background, people waiting to go on, people having friendly conversations, people eating or drinking in the backyard. You have this they're not performing, they're just around in a place that's being recorded. But then when MinMax leaves, they take their camera with them and they continue filming a travelogue. So you have these at least three different layers. You have the clipped content on YouTube from the couch. You have the couch itself. You have the backyard for the couch. You have the handheld iPhone DJI mic travelogue where MinMax is walking around Summer Games Fest between press events, filming their impressions, filming behind the scenes at an event like Summer Game Fest. And then you have, even beyond that, when MinMax, when they go back to their hotel rooms, they do a little outro or an intro to the day when they're by themselves before they've met anyone. So you have these monologues, these off the cuff, shaky cam footage monologues that sort of show you how they felt themselves that morning or what they're packing in their bag. Then you have the two of them walking the event. Then you have you don't get to see the behind the doors press coverage, but you get as close to it as possible. I guess you get before and after impressions in the travelogue. Then you have them going to the Giant Bomb backyard barbecue. You see the backyard barbecue footage on Giant Bomb's channel. Then you have them on the couch getting interviewed in the Giant Bomb couch at Summer Game Fest. And then you have, the most viewed footage would be the highlights from the couch that are clipped on YouTube. Maybe a lot of people would see that, but it's nice being able to dig deeper and feel like you can really follow, I guess you can follow the story, you can follow, choose your own adventure a little bit is what it's like. And the more different footage you have and the more places it goes, the more decisions you can make about which footage you watch. It's kind of in a sense like you're there. You're hanging out there and deciding who you follow and where you go. And it's parasocial, you're just getting a one-way feed. But it's you're customized. It's what are you interested in? What do you want to do? You get to sort of follow along in your own way. in terms of which information, which video feeds you take in and which audio you listen to. Then you have even like a recap of all that on different podcasts. You can listen to like the audio, the after the fact, after they've gotten back from the trip, what they thought of it as audio on podcasts. So that's even another layer, another perspective on the same situation. And then I guess you have me now too. Like I'm here talking about all of this on my way to Pleasanton, or running in Pleasanton. And so that's even another layer to all of this, is like, who am I? I'm just some guy. My perspective on all this is maybe posted somewhere that people can listen to. And there's just so many layers of blending, from what used to be the highest level production content all the way down to someone being recorded somewhere, blending into and out of thoughts about a certain thing. And there's something pretty cool about that is mixed right in there with like Nathan For You and The Rehearsal and The Curse, all these like shows that are about the filming of a show, shows that you can't tell if people are acting or not, people doing interviews in person, you can't tell if they're acting or not, people bumping into each other in an event, having a conversation, marketing themselves or not, just being friends. It's very interesting these days as video and mics become smaller and more portable and more people are comfortable using them. We almost get like home videos of everyone. Home videos of the human race is what's happening at the moment. Just people filming things randomly, posting those in archives online, and then we just can go back whenever we sort of wonder about something. We can sift through footage of all this stuff and watch, see footage of what humans thought might be important to document or didn't realize they were documenting at different times. Yeah, there's something, it's like archaeology, like our fascination with digging up and preserving and learning about archaeology. We have this ability to almost do real-time archaeology, sift around in online space, finding different perspectives and information that fills out who different characters are from our perspective. And we learn about one another and expand. We learn about what our society is so complicated these days. We can really learn a lot about what it is in the moment by just poking around and finding stuff and recording our own thoughts and then hearing other people's, responses to that in some sense. That's very fascinating to me. I feel, like if nothing else, I paused the mic there to stop to go to the washroom under a tree on this like back alley pathway. But I was gonna say, if nothing else, these recordings are just little experiments that I'm doing to stimulate my creativity. And I don't, I'm posting them, but I don't expect anything to really come of that. But I can't really get a great sense of exactly how I feel about something without doing it in a most direct way as possible. And definitely that's been true with this. Just the initial recordings I've done so far of myself, they've really tightened up and made much more specific and detailed my thoughts and opinions on what it all means, what recording these types of things means, and what creative, different kinds of, things, content could we obtain by applying this style of recording to the different things that we do, vacationing and such. We sort of have, there was Twitter, now there's X, and Truth Social is there because politicians are on it. And it's sort of a way of people, every thought they have, if they wanted, they can get it out there in a text format, in sort of a direct feed. And it's sort of like, it's very authentic and direct. But there's even, you know, if you imagine someone was just streaming audio from their life all the time, you could tune into it and just hear like this, a stream of consciousness or something. And there'd be like security issues and stuff, but you could kind of turn off and on. Like it would be like a, you know, a short form text-based social media, but for audio recordings. And you could just sort of punch on a mic and say what's on your mind. Maybe you could transcribe it, or you could just hear the audio. But it's certainly, you know, people would get good at it, I think. And they'd go on vacations and you'd hear something like a bunch of thoughts that someone had on their vacation or a trip they took. And you can kind of follow along like in their voice, as if they were kind of as if you were just there along with them the whole time, listening to whatever they said in the moment. And that's an interesting thing that, you know, it's an angle of content. You could capture some video. It would sort of be like, you know, imagine like some kind of interesting or famous person that you're familiar with. If they sort of, you know, they're traveling somewhere in a bus, like between events, and they're just sort of saying what's on their mind. You could have a video feed out the window or hear the audio of what they're thinking, and it would sort of feel like you're just kind of quietly sitting there listening as they go on about something that matters to them. And there wouldn't be a whole lot of difference between that and if that was, you know, if you really were there just quietly listening to whatever they said. Of course, they wouldn't be as real because they would be performing in some sense, and they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't want to say stuff that's going out there. Some things are only said if it's like a temporary, non-recorded, in the moment thing. So you'd miss out on that stuff. But I don't know. That actually sounds kind of like a cool film or something. Like you get told the whole plot of a whole film, just secondhand information while you're just chilling places, listening to other people ramble, and you just kind of piece together some whole story that's fascinating together over time. It's just that's like a cool, you know, I don't think we've really done that, but that is our lives. Rarely do we ourselves, first person in real life, experience a great story from end to end, some part of it or all of it, or even, you know, if you want that third person view and unbiased look into a story, it's always told to us via some medium. And the original medium was just spoken word storytelling. So that's like, you know, that's really kind of fascinating. Because you could have a small bar, a tavern or something, you pretend you're a traveler, you walk in and there's just actors and you overhear conversations, you talk, you just sit there, you know, you sit down at a table and a guy tells you a story and like, you know, based on his character, maybe he doesn't let you interrupt him. So you're just getting a one-way story. You feel like you don't want to be rude, so you don't ask questions, and that just allows him to go like perform his monologue and deliver you this tale. And that seems like it would be fairly true to the experience of being a traveler, just sitting down with a stranger in a tavern and hearing a story. And that feels like what's more true than that. Even doing the actual story itself, like when you do an actual event, you're distracted by different things, you're nervous, so you don't really get the full story. If you're the main character of the story, you miss a lot of the story. So getting told from another person secondhand, that feels pretty directly like the truth. And there's something very fascinating about that. Because even this, like if somebody listened to this, it's kind of like they're just running alongside me, following me around today, and just listening to what I say. And like, I don't know, maybe if you wanted to make it, like you could say they lost their voice or they they're feeling tired or whatever reason, they just requested that, you know, they never have to respond to anything I'm saying. And then it would really be like they're there, because what would they do differently if they were there other than hear me talk about things? I watched a video today called something about suffering from burnout, and it essentially made the point that, you know, if it used this analogy of a melody, and it said if you play a melody 3 notes, it'll sound cool the first time, and then the more you play it, the more it gets boring, and you have this temptation to iterate on it and change it up a little bit. And they said sort of the stage of burnout is when you're just playing that melody over and over, and you feel kind of uninspired, and nothing, you know, you don't feel like nothing's new, and things aren't very engaging. So they said, you know, like eventually, just naturally, you get you know, like you got to take burnout seriously, and you got to take a break and do what you got to do. But eventually, you progress back to a period of creativity and excitement, and it's largely by iterating on that original melody, playing it in different ways, and finding something new. And the idea was like, you're not gonna find like a better melody. You're gonna find like a variation that you kind of invented, and that'll be as exciting as it is. But it does sort of open this door to, like, in any situation, you know, take what's around and take what's been done and think about it, and then change it a little bit so that it's unique, and make something unique and new and fresh, or a little bit fresh. And that does seem exciting and interesting. And so here I'm sort of thinking, you know, like I film a lot of videos that are existing formats. Like, for example, if I sit down to play a game and I say my thoughts, that is like an invented format. It's called like a quick look, and it's when you sit down and you play a game for about an hour and you just talk about the game, your thoughts. You give people a little intro to it. You're trying to sort of give them the experience of what the game is through your eyes. And you can vary that like a little bit. Like, obviously, if I do it, it's my own personality making a quick look. But it's not different enough to be a new, interesting thing. And so if I sat down and I wanted to sort of take that format and iterate on it in a meaningful way, where I inject some uniqueness and some freshness, that's exciting to me. And I'm still kind of, that's what I'm doing these days, is thinking, you know, what really resonates, what's a spin that I can put on something that really resonates with me. And there's certainly some ways of, when I'm presented with content, I often can think of at least a few ways that it could be tweaked to appeal to me specifically, personally, more. And as I get better with creating content, when I create my own content, I put those little spins on it so that it's very more personal to me and unique in my own way. And that feels valuable, because surely there's people out there that share my interest in somewhat, and this would be content that they find a little bit more appealing because it's more in line with what they like. Not that what they like is anything special, it's just everybody likes something different. So the more variety we have, the more you can find something that really fits well, and then you ruminate about that, and eventually you make something that branches off of that is its own unique thing. And there's something really inherent to that process. It feels like, what can we do if not that? And I don't say that therefore that's our purpose or some kind of greater meaning to that. It's just something we can do, especially if we are experiencing some kind of, burnout or boredom. It's a tactic we can use to freshen things up, and it does lead to new stuff. And that does, in some way, that seems to be what we like as humans. We like new things, fresh things, different things. We don't really have we don't really rate things very accurately as good or bad, absolutely. We sort of rate them relative to other things we've seen and how fresh they are. Yeah. So once again, I'm fairly happy that I have some of that recorded. I'm not really organizing it in one place at the moment, but it's just nice. It's nice to really feel like, I want to put it into words that I feel someone else listening with not a lot of context could understand, especially, myself in the future. I want to make sense to myself, so I'm not just like glazing over things or going as fast as I normally would inside my own head. I'm taking time to build things in a coherent way, and I think that helps frame my thinking to be more easily communicated in the future whenever the time comes that I have to do that. And it puts it down in recording, and so it's there independent of me. It's like a little backup. It's funny too, in the era of AI companion, AI chatbots, I'm finally just having a conversation with no one. Normally I would be pretending to have a conversation between two people in my own head, or I would be talking with someone else. But for the first time, almost, it's just me talking to no one intentionally. And it's just funny that maybe in some way that was inspired by, the businesses of the world at the moment telling me that what we want is to talk to an artificial person. And my response is kind of like, actually, now that you mention it, I think we just want to like talk to ourselves and like learn more about ourselves and get better at expressing our own ideas to ourselves in some way. And we want to relate to each other. And it's almost like most of the time we are alone. Maybe we have a lot of alone time that we spend these days. Why not spend some time getting better at rehearsing, sort of what we're all about, what we find interesting, what we thought of. And then when we do get together, we're just better at communicating and saying what we feel and what we want. Or that would be the hope anyways. Who's to say if that's true, or it could be the opposite. The more we talk alone, the worse we get at having a two-way conversation where you have to actively listen and respond. There's an idea I have, something that's what I think of as the ultimate test, which is given a topic that you don't really know you're going to be given in advance. You don't have a lot of advance warning, you're just given a theme or a topic. Do an actual freestyle rhyming rap that really says what you want to say, and it discovers new things to say and creates as many ideas as possible, and say it all in a way that's rhythmic and rhyming and sounds good from an entertainment point of view. And I just feel like if somebody can do that, if there's a beat in an audience, you'd think it would be challenging, but it does seem harder if there's no beat and there's no audience. If it's just you alone with no feedback and no beat, trying to rhyme and stay in cadence about a topic that you have hopefully something to say about, or you have to discover something interesting to say about. That seems like the ultimate test of one's ability to find something to communicate and communicate it in a entertaining way on the spot without much warning. And then just that if you can do that, I don't see why anything talking out of beat, talking with preparation, talking with someone else, talking where you have some kind of crutch or a video game in the background going on to fill up the dead air. I don't see how any of that could be more challenging than the ultimate sort of freestyle rap about a random topic. But again, who knows? I'm just what I'm thinking about these days. I sort of think, if I got very comfortable and very good at talking like this, then why not try to rhyme a bit or freestyle? And I don't think it would be very good, but people get good at that. And maybe they get a little bit distracted by that, actually. So it seems like a good side thing to be aware of and attempt. But when it, it's not, shouldn't become the focus or the main thing. It's just like a way of cross training a little bit. Well, I'm at the house now, and there's a car here. I guess maybe they got back, so I'll check my phone.
Nancy said you did a good job for watering her flowers.
Yeah, I'm surprised that like it's so hard to overwater them. Like my strategy was just like fill every pot like twice,
Yeah.
and I can't believe nothing. Some plants are very sensitive to too much,
Flower only.
except the indoor ones only need like a couple ice cubes.
Yeah, that's why like those.
Do they ever use the ice cubes normally? Like,
Like drinks?
Yes.
like I was supposed to like fill some of the plants with ice outside, and I did that.
Yeah.
Do they ever do that normally? Because
No, because normally she'll be dead.
yeah, because you can take the whole ice box out and just like dump it inside plants.
Oh, that works. That's what. you
Yeah.
did? Okay.
Yeah, it's very fast. Something I thought of on the way over here is like today, I just have this constant recording going on at the microphone, and like I always have the microphone on me, so the recording is from like my perspective, like my monologue, then my experience of the lunch. But then I was thinking if you pass off the microphone to someone else where I'm like not present, then the story becomes told from like the microphone's perspective, because it's like no individual knows everything that was said, only the microphone does, versus like if I keep the microphone on me, then it's like it's just everything I would hear normally is just recorded. But it's like kind of interesting, like if you're in Disney and if you like leave a theme park, like you're filming, you're recording during the day and then you leave, but one of your family members like stays there at night, you could give them like the camera, the mic, and then they add to the video, but you don't see that part until like the edit. So it's like a way of but then I was thinking like the next morning you could record the conversation where you're asking them like, hey, what did you do in the park last night? And they're telling you, but then you'd also have the footage of what they did. So you'd have this like extra information about the vacation that you're on that you wouldn't get yourself, but you would have also like the footage of them telling you about the part you missed, and you'd have like the footage that they collected at that part. And it gets very interesting there where it's like extra sensory something.
What if you just get two?
Yeah, I mean, if everyone has a mic, where's the actual beam to get his speed? I feel like it needs a larger object.
Yeah.
Like maybe you could trigger the minimum. That seems pretty accurate though, actually.
I'm very surprised it could detect you. Yeah, I thought like the vehicle, a bigger object.
I think it detected the Tesla behind.
Oh, okay.
I'm almost there.
20 miles an hour, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty fast. Oh yeah, 24 is super fast actually. I was thinking like 20 kilometers an hour is fast for like Olympic marathon. People are like 20K an hour.
Yeah.
But this is like 24 miles. Yeah. Yeah, maybe, but it's actually crazy sometimes. I actually wonder about that. I wish I want like a ghost pace so I can test, because I feel like it's actually like a crazy sprint somehow. That would be a fun, like in a museum, if there was like a 100-meter stretch in a museum and a little, like some lights that went along the side and you could try to beat it.
Oh, I've seen.
Yeah, I think I see that. Oh yeah. Treadmill is interesting.
Concept,
I feel like, yeah, except on a treadmill, you can like jump in the air.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always felt that's kind of weird on a treadmill. Yeah, the other thing these mics do is they have like a little base station that plugs into a phone. And once you plug that into the phone, when you take a video with your phone, it uses like the audio from the mics. Yeah, it was neat. The first time I tested it, I just like set my phone up, like looking at Nevi in the living room. And then I walked around the apartment with the mic. And it was kind of a neat experience, like getting good audio, but being totally independent from the camera. It made me immediately think like, at any gathering, you could set up like a GoPro in the corner and just kind of have these mics around, and you get this like clean audio, and then you have like a sort of a video to go with it. Yeah, I'm watching a lot of, like I was thinking about all this like layered content that I'm watching these days, because there was a press event called Summer Game Fest. I don't know, do you hear about Summer Game Fest? It takes place in LA, and it's all these like press people go to it. Like it's just for press, but it's like they have a little alleyway, they have all these like press, like different companies set up their booths, and then there's like the big, like they go to an auditorium to watch like the big trailer presentations. but all the, like a lot of games media will do like a travel log where they're just like hanging out in this like nice alleyway with picnic tables and some free drinks and stuff. And they're like meeting up with other press people like in between sessions, and they just film that and they film their conversations. And then there was another outlet that they rented like an Airbnb house nearby, and they set up like a couch and they brought people in to do interviews like on the couch. But then in the backyard, they just had like they had a camera in the backyard showing like the hot tub and the surrounding area for like anyone that was mingling, like not on set, not on the couch, but just like hanging out in the backyard. They just had that like B-roll footage. And then they put a camera in the fridge too, like they put drinks in the fridge. And so anytime someone opens the fridge, you see like a camera shot of that. But it was weird because it's like MinMax is traveling to LA, staying in hotels, doing their like travel log. But then one of the events that MinMax does is go on that giant bomb couch. So you kind of see like you see footage of them like waking up in the hotels, like doing their bit, like saying how their day is gonna go, like meeting up together, having meals, going to events, going to this giant bomb couch. Then you see the feed, like you see them in the feed in the backyard. Then you see them on the couch in like the more highly produced format. And it was just making me think of all these different like rungs of qualities of content that are available now. Like you can sort of follow someone's story through like a whole event by jumping from stream to stream or something. And that's just like a neat way to experience an event. Like I don't even watch the game trailers. I just watch like the people that cover games like going about their jobs almost. Yeah, it's like how every like famous singer is like a physically attractive, then like every game dev also has to be like they have to make their personality attractive, or they have to be like weirdly mysterious. Yeah. Have you heard about this game called Peak? It's just like a silly, yeah, Peak. It's just like a silly mountain climbing game, but it's like a 4-player multiplayer with proximity voice chat. And the team that made it, they started making it last February at a game jam, and then they produced it and they released like a 1.0 version just recently. And it sold like 2 million copies in like the first 6 days. Yeah, and so many people are playing it and streaming it because of the proximity chat and just the way the characters are kind of like fumbly, and they fall. If you fall off the cliff, you hear the person like and there's different items, and people are just kind of into these like if 4 people want to hang out, they do like a proximity chat little hangout game with some challenge. It's kind of challenging too. Yeah. Oh right. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's so funny. Like, if you watched like your favorite streamers play a game and it's on sale and it just came out and like 3 of your friends have it and are playing it together, it's like of course you're gonna like you can't not pay $5 to like hang out with your friends after you've been told like this is a fun experience. It's like the best, the most heavily targeted. Yeah. There was a funny, like in the game, there's a little stuffed animal you can pick up at the beginning, and it's like, it has no point except you can put it in your bag and you get like an achievement to get it to the top. But the devs, it takes up an inventory slot. So yeah, you lose, I guess. You lose like 1 inventory slot, but the devs have a script where they can take over, they can become like the voice for that stuffed animal. And the stuffed animal is called Bing Bong. And so people have like streams where they're just playing the game, and then Bing Bong is like, hey, I'm Bing Bong. And at first they're like, oh, it's just like a recording or like AI or whatever. And then it's like, no, I'm a real person. I'm one of the devs. Like, and the dev will be like, can I like tag along on your, put me in the bag, like bring me with you. And it's like a way of them getting like feedback or something on the game. But it's a funny thing where like you're in a game playing it, and then one of the devs is just in the game, like,
wait, what if they just, like,
being like, hey.
to your private conversation?
Yeah, that one of the people I listen to on a podcast is a lawyer, and they're like, I'm gonna check the the release, the TOS, see if they drop that in there. Like, you might be visited by a dev like in your game. But that's the thing that I want to do to MinMax itself, because next December I'm gonna make another jam game for them. But if I put like a secret back-end like server where whenever they stream my game, I can like start talking in the game on stream, that would be like the craziest. But it seems so, like, I'm sure technically, yeah, it's like technically not so hard to do that. And you are watching their stream live, but that would just be the craziest. And I wouldn't even have to do voice. I could just do any sort of like I could, send text that appears in the game or turn off and on a light. And if you just did it in the right way, like they'd know it was like a human doing it and they'd be like, what? Yeah, it's August. I don't know the exact week yet. They sort of had to shuffle their plans around. But yeah, it's like a 3-day thing. And there's like Mount Rainier is a big mountain in Washington State. We're gonna run there's like a trail called the Wonderland Trail. It's a 100 miles long trail and it goes right around the mountain. And so we're just doing that trail, but we have 3 days and it was supposed to be like every night for each, like you do 33 miles a day and they give you they set up your tent and stuff. And they cook food and everything. But there was this bridge that washed out. So there's going to be one night where we have to just kind of carry, we'll leave the camp after the first night and carry all our food and tent and everything to set up for ourselves on the second night. The bridge is just for car access. So you just have to carry everything in. But there's enough. Yeah, at first they're like, oh, we're going to modify the route. But then enough runners were like, no, just let us carry all our own stuff. And so now we're just going to do that. I know it's either it's 1 of 2 weeks in August, yeah. Yeah. But maybe I was thinking I'll use these microphones, I'll record little audio clips at different times. And I was thinking...
famous TikToker, and he just
yeah.
really good.
I wanted to do, if I ever do this 360K Switzerland race, I wanted to make a video, but it would also be so hard to film and run at the same time. But if I just had a GoPro on a selfie stick, I could just have that around constantly on. But I think actually GoPros only run for 2.5 hours or something. So that's not even, I would need it to run for 24 hours. So I couldn't really do video constantly.
I don't think there is.
But microphones though, if I had both microphones and a base station at the halfway, then each microphone would be 12 hours each.
But you have to think about how much hour.
Yeah. I don't know if you can easily turn on and off a GoPro. So you just can I think one selfie stick has a remote button, so I could turn it on for clips. Yeah, it just seems it's easy to record yourself and to get high up for perspective. But also just that you can actually get a floating selfie stick handle for water. And then also if you just stuff the stick in your bag, you could mount it on the back of your bag. It would just be an easy thing to maneuver other than and maybe a bit more stable of a shot, because if you're just holding the camera in your hand, it's kind of just like a tennis ball or something. But I was thinking too, as I get better at this, maybe I would even occasionally, if I'm running with another runner, I could be hey, you want to record our conversation? Or if I'm having dinner with the runners, just throw the mic on the table, if it's just me and another person or something, and be hey, I'll just leave this here. And then you'd have these quite interesting, midway through discussions. I was very worried it would get dropped in the Hotpot yesterday. I was actually falling asleep for some reason. I was very scared. Yeah, I was envisioning these scenarios where people joke about putting it in the Hotpot and then they actually drop it accidentally, and I was maybe I shouldn't bring it just to avoid that risk. Yeah, sometimes I just feel I predict a negative scenario, and it's should I do something to just prevent that from happening altogether? Well, there's another meeting on Monday where he's going to report his findings. Yeah. He said anyone with more than a certain amount of money in a Chase bank account is considered a Chase private client, and you just get free advice. But once you tell him your total savings are a certain amount, then well, it's not a very high amount that you have to be over.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird, because I see, I walk around downtown and I see these Chase private client things, and I'm oh, that's for the rich people. And then, and then we just put a small amount in the account and we become that. But I was asking him how is this free and how is it unbiased? And he said it's just a service that Chase provides. I guess, I don't know why they would, because he's not going to recommend Chase or Morgan Stanley services. So I don't know what they're actually hoping to get out of it.
I don't think
I guess you might.
Morgan Stanley. They use something.
Maybe some people choose Chase because they get that free benefit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Another bank off.
Oh yeah. But whenever I meet with those people, I always tell them, But I always tell them like, you know, like I go on Reddit and I read financial advice and they say put everything in S&P, and I always like tell them that and see how they react. But so everyone I've told that to is always like a youngish person anyway, like 30 or 40, and they're always like, oh yeah, like go on, if you read on Reddit, you pretty much know like 95%. But then he started telling me, he's like, you can do you can take your 401k and you can do a one-time conversion into like an IRA, and you pay tax on the transfer. But then later in life, when you withdraw those investments, they're tax-free. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, you can, like, if you have a bunch of money that you, like, cause when you pay into a 401k, it's like tax-free paying into it. Like your money, it's like before your paycheck gets taxed, you put it in the 401k, and then you can like convert it to another account that's like tax-free on the way out. And that seemed kind of interesting. Then he said also you can maintain those accounts when you're in Canada. So that's kind of good to know. What? To retire. Well, they keep asking about your goals. They're like, what if do you want to buy a house or something? And I always wonder, like, that's why it's always, yeah. Well, the problem is like, they're like, how much money do you spend and how much money do you think you'll spend in retirement, and where's your retirement going to be? And like, they ask you like, what age do you want to retire? Then they tell you your fee. So it's kind of like you can never get like a straight answer. Yeah, also something that's strange is when you say like they ask you, do you want to buy a house? And it's like, well, I'm going to save as much money as I can for as long as I can, and maybe I'll buy a house when I feel like it, but it's not like buying a house changes trying to maximize the savings. It's only like maybe you put them in lower risk if you're about to buy, but even then, like I feel like S&P is everything, you know, it's like high risk, low risk, everything. Yeah, 7%. Yeah. Well, the house raises in value over time. Well, you said cash though. Cash is money. S&P is stock. Yeah, you want to invest 90% of your cash at all times, have 10% in cash, and then you may or may not buy a house as like an investment. Yeah, I was wondering. Well, that's interesting too. He said that you can take a loan out. You can take a loan. You can take a line of credit loan from Chase secured by your stock at a low interest rate. So you don't have to sell your stock. You just pay interest on a loan. And so that's another thing. That's why I like talking to these guys, because I thought that was like a billionaire loophole. Yeah, so yeah, I was sort of telling him like the loan. Well, he said I think 3% interest rate. Like you pay them 3% to have the money. Yes, 30%. But it just has to be lower than the tax. We pay 30% tax on sales-ish, or less, maybe 15%. Yeah, it's like 30% on half the amount. Yes. On half the profit, I guess. But yeah, my thing that I always say is like the Boba walk, Boba legs. I always tell them like, if the exact perfect house showed up for us, then we would buy it. And if we can't buy it, then who could, right? Like who's, you know, it's like, if you look at any household though, it's like, are we making some glaring financial mistake that if we switched, we would be able to afford a house when otherwise we couldn't? It's not really true. It's like, we're just waiting for like the right house at the right price and the right interest rate. And if those things appear, then it's like no one's, but it's not like I'm gonna talk to the guy and he's like, oh, if you make this one tiny checkbox like change, you can afford a house all of a sudden. It's like, whether or not I can afford a house just depends on how much do houses cost and do I want to invest the time in like upkeeping one. It's sort of like, it's just weird that it's like, why even talk about house at all? Just like tell me to put it in the S&P 500 pretty much, and the only thing is rent always goes up. Yeah. And so buying is just like, if we know we're going to be in the same city, then we buy to control like our mortgage becomes our rent, but at least it's fixed. But then it's just all depends on the interest rate. And there is like, the problem is just the housing crisis. Like That's the thing, is like you talk to a financial planner and it's like, what's your goal? It's like, my goal is to just hope that the housing crisis goes away. Like, that's not, you know, like I don't have control over this at all. But yeah, I just feel like
Then I was
Yeah.
wondering, example, if we
that's not, well, they say that knowing that like the average person will never have more than 20% possible down payment.
okay, so,
Like, I think you never really put more than 20%, but
this
no
is
one
only-
will
it's
ever
usually,
save.
Like, half thing, no,
But whatever the
1%.
amount. Like
No,
the average
let's say
person,
we have half.
no, that's like an extremely high risk for like at a housing market that could collapse at any moment. You don't want to put your entire savings into one house. Like, that's just like exposing yourself to an incredible amount of risk. And there's not really a benefit at that. Because like if the market crashes, you can use all the money to buy cheaply stock and you can buy a house cheaper, and like you're paying off the mortgage for like 30 years.
We probably won't.
Yeah, it's more like maybe you take like a $1.5 million loan, secure it against stock, and then you pay against the loan. Because that way you keep the stock, and I guess the loan is like your mortgage or something. Imagine if the Hotpot place had fresh boba and you could put it in your hot pot to cook it.